Hello and welcome to Morning Buzz. I'm Adam Eisen, Membership Director here at the One Club for Creativity, your virtual elf on a shelf, and your host. Well, the end of the year has officially crept up on us, and we have arrived at our final episode for 2022. We have one more presentation for you that I know you're going to love, and then we'll wrap up the year with some updates from the One Club. But before we dive in, this is my usual public service announcement to find the chat box and say hello. We'd love to hear where you're tuning in from, use some mistletoe emojis, and be sure to drop your questions because there will be time at the end of the program. So now I'm very excited to bring our friends from Gale to present the Avengers theory of collaboration. Please welcome Executive Creative Director Geoff Edwards and Executive Producer Tessa Banks. Hi both, how are you? Oh, you're on mute. I think you did a little flip-flop.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, how are you guys?
Good.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, I can't wait to see what you have to share with us. So I'm going to hand the screen over to you and I'll be back on to help with some Q&A at the end.
Thank you, Adam.
All right. We're going to share our screen. Here we go. All right.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're here to talk about the Avengers theory, as Adam had mentioned, and hopefully you find this rewarding. Good, nice. But first, some introductions. I'm Geoff Edwards. Hi, everyone, and I'm the ECD at Gale Partners, and responsible largely for the creative product of the company across all of my client base. I manage the diverse teams that bring those ideas to life and the solutions that we do on behalf of our clients, as everything that we do is meant to drive business results. And I'm here with a superhero character, myself, my colleague, Tessa Banks. Tessa.
Hey, everybody. I'm the EP at Gale, and I oversee all things production. So really, from start to finish, we are making everything that these lovely people are ideating, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege. So we're going to talk through a bunch of fun stuff today.
That's right. So as mentioned, the theme of the talk this morning is the Avengers theory. So by a show of virtual hands, how many people know who the Avengers are? I'm sure many of you do, and we can talk about it later in our Q&A. But for those of you who don't, it's a unbelievable collection of human beings that solve problems around the universe, the Marvel universe. There's a Black Panther, which is T'Challa, the defender of Wakanda. There's a Black Widow spider who was, raised to basically be a warrior and a spy with superpowers. There's Captain Marvel, there's Captain America, the Hulk, Iron Man, Spider-Man. The list goes on, but just an extraordinary group of people that all have unique superpowers. But it's how they conquer the challenges that we feel there's some cues that we can take in businesses that we do as we kind of go on with our talk here. So you may ask yourself, or perhaps you don't, what do the Avengers have to do with advertising? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. But it's actually not who they are, but it's what they do that we're going to talk about today. It's a way that when the universe calls upon them, that they work collaboratively, that we want to take cues from. And that's going to be basically the foundation of our discussion this morning. So we're going to read you a passage about how we define Avengers theory, and then we're going to go right into it. So the Avengers are a band of superheroes that save the world from impending doom and evil forces. Each individually has a superpower, as we know, that makes them formidable in the face of their opposition, but together is when they're unstoppable. And that was always the thing that I liked about these superhero characters when I was a kid, is that you would see what they would do, saving Gotham City, stopping a fireball from hitting Earth. But it's when there was a big threat to mankind that they would get together. And when they got together, they took on these roles. Captain America, because he's a captain, would be kind of like the leader. Hulk would be the person who would help move a building or do something. Like they would just use their superpowers. The King of Wakanda would use his technical abilities to help solve something that was of need. And so that's what makes it interesting. So in the comic book land, we call this the Avengers theory. But in marketing and in business and the things that we're talking about today, we simplify it to collaboration. So that's what we're going to discuss. So we want to unpack that together, and we're going to spend the next couple minutes doing that a little bit. Tessa, can you take us through that?
I sure can. So you're asking yourself, what is collaboration, right? Well, basically the main thing we always talk about here is collaboration is how we go from good work to great work. That is key. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about what collaboration is. So one thing we like to say is like making time for it, right? Really making sure that you protect time to have collaboration baked into the process, right? So we have kickoffs, we have moments where we're just like, we want to hear from everybody, but it is crucial that you make time to make this happen. Participation, you have to be there and really be part of the solution, be active and making sure that your opinion, everyone's opinion is represented. And that is something that we think is crucial. Active listening, really making sure that, you're hearing everybody in this situation. We don't just want to show up and be in the room. We want to make sure that we're hearing each other out. We are making sure that we understand what's being said, because everybody's opinion matters in the situation, and we have to make sure everybody feels that way. Another thing, collaborating like friends. This is something we do at Gale a lot. We like to say it because it's not just, being in the room together and saying like, oh yeah, hey coworker, this is what's going on. If you're with your friends, the way that you talk to each other and the way that you listen to each other is something that is, valued in a way that, you really trust each other, and you're trying to make sure that each other's heard, and you want to be, feel like it's this safe space. And so to do that, you really have to treat each other like friends. And so it's not just coworkers, you are hearing each other. It's a safe space. Being proactive, right? So I don't want to just be here and say, okay, I have an idea, but like, hey, you know what? We should be talking to each other. We should be talking about what makes sense and saying like, hey, Geoff, do you have an idea? You're not sure. Hey, maybe you're stuck. Like, what do you need to help keep moving? That keep work with each other on this. Collaboration is always changing and evolving. You may have one way in the beginning of the project, but down the road, you may have to do something different. Just be okay with the fact that it's going to be changing. It's going to be moving. And actually, that's probably the best thing. It's going to be keeping you guys on your toes. And we are going to make something great because we are fluid with the entire process. And so what we'd like to say is collaboration is definitely 100% the way to defeat we can't do that. People say, oh, I don't know, I can't do it. And you use each other and your different skill sets to figure out a path forward and not just get stuck on, hands up, I don't know. We also like to talk about what collaboration is not, right? So integration, people talk about this all the time. We always laugh at saying we're an integrated agency, we're an integrated system. And it's great to say that because you have lots of different skill sets and lots of different functions, but that's not necessarily, that's not enough. It's not collaborating, right? You have to put the right people together. You have to understand their points of view, respect those points of view, pull that together and really hear each other. And that is, the crux of collaboration. One thing we like to say is like, people think that you don't need a collaboration, right? Exactly. You just say like, oh, I can do this. I have my skill sets, or you feel like the need to execute it by yourself, right? And you don't put a lot of value in collaboration. But the thing is, it's like, remember that like we always say, it's kind of, we laugh about it, but like, it is crucial. Collaboration makes things better. Remember that, hold that as truth, work with each other to figure out what that means. The other part of this is like talking just to talk. People show up and say like, oh, well, I have to make a comment, right? Yep. And that isn't really necessarily the right thing. So if sometimes like Geoff is saying, I have this great idea, right? And sometimes it's not just like, oh, I have to say something to be additive and in my sense of it. It's like, hey, sometimes validating what Geoff is saying
That's right.
is the way to move forward, because you're saying like, hey, I hear you, I see you, and actually this is great, reinforce it, make that to, again, a safe space. What we say is passive participation. We have people a lot of just come to meetings and they're like, oh, I went to that collaboration session, and so like I was there. And that's not really what we're talking about, right? We want to make sure that we are, whatever this means to you, is like we're agreeing, we are listening, we are contributing, and we're being honest about our opinion here. All of this is important. And one of the things that I talk about too is like, don't just show up and say, okay, this is fine. You might want to say, hey, I have an opinion, or
Yes.
someone else's opinion. I want to, like I said, second guessing your opinion, right? So it's okay. It could be wrong. It could be right. It will foster some kind of thinking, and which is very valuable. So be confident in the fact that like, whether right or wrong or different or, random, it's going to help the conversation to move forward.
I agree. And one point on that too, Tessa, because you're absolutely right, is showing up to just show up, it does a disservice to the collaboration culture. Every opinion is valuable, and it's actually by putting out that opinion that you have, or that thought that you have, that you begin to build the house. How many times have you been in a brainstorm and someone says, I got a really, really bad idea? And it's usually when I say, you got to tell me what that bad idea is, because it's not going to be a bad idea. It's going to be an idea. And when that idea is brought forth, then maybe somebody takes it and they build upon it. And then by building upon that idea, it becomes something more. That's the spirit of collaboration.
Exactly. And then the last part of this, what it isn't, hot potato, right? I think we've all been there, where it says, hey, that's somebody else's problem, or like, I don't know, they can't move forward, so like I'm out. And really it is about accountability, and it's saying like, whether you have a new idea or you're helping someone get through the process of like of their process and what they want to contribute, really make sure that you're helping in some kind of way. There's many ways to collaborate. It just doesn't just have to be an idea. It can be, really, how do we build someone else up? How do we help the process? Plenty of ways, making sure that you really take a part in moving things forward.
And then there's something called collaboration kryptonite, which, by the way, bit of a mixed metaphor, because we're here talking about the Avengers theory, and obviously that's kind of rooted in Marvel lore. Kryptonite is DC and is something that keeps Superman from being his super awesome self, but it's relevant here.
And I'm a DC fan.
And she's a DC fan. Okay, so that's the only kind of like border that we have here. Anyway, so collaboration kryptonite, let's talk about it a little bit if you go. And it is fear. It's a very, very kind of vulnerable environment when you go into a collaboration, because you're going to think, God, I'm going to say something stupid. Oh my God, I'm in a room of people that are smarter than I am. How am I going to contribute to this conversation to move things down the field? And it's that fear that we have to overcome. Otherwise, there's no environment in which we can kind of collaborate and create great things. So overcome the fear, contribute to the collaboration.
Yes, and remember, like if you're thinking like, as part of this part being collaborative and even fostering the ideas and making sure that people don't have the fear, right? Why is my teammate hesitating? Do they need more support? Are they worried about making a decision? I'm wrong. I'm going to be seen differently, and you have to make sure that you're making that safe space for each other, and removing the fear is going to be like the thing that helps you guys move forward with collaboration.
Yeah. And one last point on this is I often say it's a quiet person in the room that you have to listen to. So if we identify someone in the collaboration pit that is not speaking, let's encourage them to say something, because mark my word, it's those quiet killers that are the ones that keep the conversation going.
Dark horse.
Yes. And now I'd like to, in this kind of center cut chapter, talk a little bit about and share some examples of some of the best collabs of the last 10 years. So this is fun. And listen, this is subjective. There's so many great collaborations that have happened, but this is a collection that Tessa and I pulled together. The first one has to be McDonald's collaboration with BK. I mean, here you have a hand-holding of the King and Ronald, literally to kind of represent joining hands to fight cancer. If you remember the program, great. If you don't, what it was is that BK supported McDonald's by not selling their trademark Whopper for one day. And they did that to kind of redirect people to McDonald's to buy the Big Mac, because the Big Mac added a $2 donation that went to support cancer. And so what a selfless act, right? Is that these two superpowers have kind of gone against each other forever, but in identifying something that was greater than themselves, they came together. So that's our first example. Second example comes from culture, music culture and gaming culture. And it was Travis Knight and his collab with Fortnite. This is a historic event. If you remember, this is a game changer. 23, I think it was like 12.3 million current viewers watched this. And it was the first time you kind of had in the game engine a live concert, and it set records. It was, I think afterwards, every brief was just like, oh, we have to do something in the game engine of Roblox or something like that. But this was a great example as well. Who could forget the Kentucky Fried Crocs? You know, the
Rolls off the tongue.
It just rolls right off the tongue. And it's delicious, by the way. KFC and Crocs. This was the collaboration. One of the hottest shoes of 2020 was the Crocs. These child shoes became kind of like mainstream and on the runways in Milan. It was crazy. And KFC used this to kind of halo their brand by kind of creating these shoes that smell like chicken. And they basically sold for $250 a pop, and just was a wonderful collaboration that continues to happen. This is one that kind of delves a little bit more into fashion culture, but this was Supreme. So everybody knows Supreme as a New York City skate brand. It was skateboards, it was stickers, it was kind of like in the culture of hip hop and rock and hardcore music. And I love that they collabed with Louis Vuitton, which is an elevated brand. To form what was meant to be just a pilot season. Like, what would happen if we just did this for a fall collection? Mm-hmm. And the fall collection ended up being just kind of an ongoing relationship. So we thought that was a good example. And then the last one came from left field, which is just, the Museum of Art in Chicago was looking to kind of promote the Van Gogh exhibit, and they collaborated with Airbnb. And it's like, what? How on earth can those two things work? Well, I'll tell you how. Is that they took the rooms that were painted in the late 1800s, and they basically made the rooms actual. So they painted the rooms. They created those kind of weird perspectives, and they allowed people to go and spend the night in these rooms. So what did it do? It lifted up Airbnb, because Airbnb was looking to get a little bit of notoriety, and at the same time, it promoted the exhibit. So both sides won. Sold out in 5 minutes, the first room, and just ended up being a pretty amazing case study even today.
It's going on my vision board.
And then in addition to that, we also have to touch upon some of the worst collaborations of the last 10 years, because as Tessa mentioned earlier, there are collaborations that work, and there are ways that those collaborations can work, but there's also some bear traps. There's ways that you can actually misalign and collaborate or force collaboration, and that ends up in places that we're going to show you. Yep.
This is me, because
okay, listen, we're not even gonna honestly, we're not even gonna spend a lot of time talking about
if
this.
you don't know, now you know.
If you don't know, now you know. Pepsi during the summer of protests, LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, and so forth, thought that they could save it with a can of soda. We're not going to talk about this. Please move to the next slide. Please move to the next slide. Equally as egregious, Legos has had a relationship with Shell since the 1960s. And it's amazing, because you have your little Lego sets, and then there's a little Lego gas station, and that gas station was branded Shell, which is kind of smart, right? That they actually took an actual brand and added it to the game to kind of give the game some reality. Problem is, Greenpeace identified the fact that there was offshore drilling, and that this was causing all kinds of problems for the environment. And Shell supposedly didn't want to do anything about it. And so this became a big thing, because kids' toy, they're doing the wrong thing for the environment. So that was probably a really, really nice initial collaboration and alignment that turned bad.
Great in theory, not in
practice. Okay, you ready for it? This isn't the last 10 years. This is actually the last 10 days. And if you haven't seen it, this is the Adidas collaboration with Balenciaga. So everybody knows the Adidas brand. Everybody knows the strength of the Balenciaga brand. But what happened, we're not even going to spend a lot of time talking about it. All I have to say is kids, teddy bears, and S&M, not good. No bueno. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. But these are just some examples of some really, really, really good collaborations, and some that kind of missed the mark. As a parting thought in this kind of chapter here, it's about people who are in the room where it happens to, Tessa. It's about not just the collaborations themselves, but the people that can influence the decisions that are made that are imperative to making sure that brands make good decisions for their businesses.
Yep. That sounds nice, but everybody's like, well,
what do we do?
How do we do this? Yep. So we like to think of this as like there's the old way of doing things. A lot of the like traditional ad agencies too. It's a conveyor belt, right? Yep. So Geoff is creative, I'm production, we have account, we have this, and it's really passing the baton, right? So you just say, I did my part, move along. And that has a lot of faults, right? What we like to look at is like the new way, and it's more fluid, and it is, we complement each other. We should always be in conversation because we all have expertise and points of view that can help along the entire process. And so we like to think of this as more the gears, and it's, we all have the expertise, but we are fluid and we're moving together and we are complementary. And so it's not just handoff, it is how are we constantly collaborating and communicating.
Yeah, and this is core to Gale's business. Tess and I find ourselves in rooms where there are kind of like program managers, and those program managers will assemble a team like the Avengers, and those teams will usually be a composite of everyone from production, creative, sometimes behavioral scientists. Gale has 12 PhDs on staff, bringing whoever we need into the group, PR, social. Like, we'll make sure that these composites of humans are all in at the onset.
Yes.
And provide experience and notes and intellectual property, anything that they can, so that we kind of use that as kind of like the soil to build upon the ideas. And then after that, I promise you, the way the idea comes to life feels integrated. Yeah, is integrated.
And that's a big part, like, right, like, especially what we love about being at Gale too is like it's a challenge because to action this kind of thinking across a very fast growing company it's a lot of work, right? And there's a lot of old habits, and we're trying to break those things, and it is a challenge, but like the special sauce is putting people first.
Yes.
Right, we want to champion the expertise of everybody in the room, and we want to recognize that creativity and innovation comes from all lanes. So from the data to the strategy to media, creative production, it is really everyone. And crafting impactful work isn't easy, right? But that's why we say no silos.
That's right.
We are friends collaborating. Those are like a lot of the core values that we cherish, and we do try to practice at Gale. And so we encourage you guys to think that way too, because everybody's opinion is valuable. It matters. It is going to help you rethink, what you've been doing, and forge a new way forward. And we think that's just key to the way you think. So the question is, who should I collaborate with, Geoff?
Everyone. I think that you to kind of quote Hamilton, you want people in the room where it happens. I think it's the curation of the people and who those humans are in the room is integral to the success of the collaboration. Gale has a belief that great people working together can create amazing outcomes. And so it is important that as many people as you can amass, not just for scale's sake, but for opinion's sake, is important.
Yep. And then we also ask, how can I create my own Avenger group? Well, I want to know. So we were trying to think, we were talking about this presentation and thinking about like, okay, that's great, but like, what can we, give everyone listening, actionable, tangible things, depending, no matter what level or where you are, what kind of place that you're at, right? So whether it's a set company and they have kind of their ways of working, or you're at a startup, all these things we can help foster the collaboration kind of process and inception it or lead it, all these things, right? So we like to say be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
That is something we always like to say because that is really where the magic happens.
Agree.
Because if it's new and it's innovative, you're going to be uncomfortable because it hasn't been done before, but that's probably a good sign that you have something that you should be looking into, right?
Agree.
Another part is remember to ask why. Right. So why are we doing what we're doing? Try to remember why you're collaborating. What is the, 30,000 foot view of it? If we get lost, people always say like, oh, well, I can't, that person can't see the forest for the trees. That is real because we like to say like, why am I moving this thing forward?
Mm-hmm.
If you get lost in the details, take a step back and say, what's the bigger purpose here?
Okay.
And that is really going to help make sure that you can recalibrate and work with everybody you have in the room. We like to say value different points of view.
This is critical.
This is huge, right? So the work changes depending on who's in the room, right? And we know that the work's going to evolve. It's going to, we like to say, grow legs, right? The depth, the texture, selfishly as a filmmaker, a storyteller, I want to have those nuances and those details because those things can spur so much, be challenged, right? So like, it's not like if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? So it's going to be something new. It's going to be tough, but it's going to be worth it, right? It's also about stretching. So I may be in my safe space, but like, where can I grow into and where can I move? And that's going to really help my thinking and help each other move forward. Other part is solve problems, right? We always say, be solution oriented.
Yeah.
We don't want to just hear no. We want to hear like, okay, not this, but maybe this. That's crucial to keeping collaboration and really just innovation moving. And we'll, to build off that, validating different points of view. So we can acknowledge it, but like people, we always say people want like positive reinforcement. It's true though, but like, it doesn't need to be egregious, but it is like, I see, hey, Geoff, you are collaborating. I'm collaborating. I see you. I hear you. Let's reinforce that. So it's like, you feel comfortable contributing to the conversation. And so it is a safe space. And the last thing we like to say is embrace your strengths and your weaknesses, right? We know that, I am not always in a place where I'm like, oh, I know everything and I shouldn't, right? So I know what I'm strong at and I should know what I'm not strong at. And instead of worrying about like where your weak spots are, know where you shine, know where, and then try to validate and see where other people shine and turn that into like some kind of supportive trust circle, right? So like focus on surrounding yourself with people with different strengths.
Yep.
So that you complement each other. That's huge for us.
Yeah, I love that. It's to double click on something that you said, Tessa, the diversity of opinions is a superpower. The fact that not everyone is just going to come in and nod yes, but that people are going to challenge, right, and they're going to help build on ideas is what makes it work. Yeah, so we have again in the spirit of a utility for this, we have 5 takeaways that we want you to remember. If you remember anything from this, remember the Avengers are awesome. Tessa's awesome. Tessa's super smart. And these are 5 takeaways that you can bring back to either your companies, your clients, or whomever. The first is honesty. Think about it like a relationship. This builds trust, and there's no collaboration whatsoever without honesty.
Yes, and adding on to that, like honesty remember, honesty is for the good of the group and the work, and it's a vital element in collaboration. And like we said before, it's collaborating like friends, right? That's part of it. Be honest and true to your gut and speak up if you feel something needs to be called out, because it's only going to help. It's not going to hurt. And that's how we, battling the fear. Be honest.
Second is trust. Again, mapping to relationships. It's super important and integral to collaborations. Trust yourself to bring your thoughts and opinions to the larger group. Trust your colleagues to bring their opinions also to the group. And then you have to trust the process, because the process is awesome, but the process is also a little messy.
Right.
But it finds its resolve.
You know, and hey, we know trust is hard, right?
Trust is hard.
It's hard and it takes time, but it does open doors. And you want to you build the trust that you and your team want to get to great work, and be an advocate for trust, right? Genuine good intention and positive energy goes a long way. So remember, it's tough, but if you build that up, sky's the limit.
Support. You heard me mention it earlier, but I'll reiterate, support the smaller voices in the room. Make sure that everyone is heard. Active listen is super important. And also support the outcome of the discussion. So the action item coming out of a collaboration is important as a process of collaborating itself, is that it's noted and it's documented, and then it's someone has a responsibility of taking those notes and bringing it either to the next collaboration or forward.
Yeah. And support also means, there's different ways to collaborate, right? So one is oh, I have an idea, I'm adding an idea, but the support aspect of it is fostering the collaboration and saying hey, maybe why is my team hesitating? Do they need more support? Are they worried about making a decision because if it's wrong, something bad happens, but we're all in this together. Remind them that this is a group effort, right? And so it's not just all on one person. It is the responsibility, accountability of the group. And you can really help move things forward by even just giving someone else that space and that platform and reinforcing their thoughts.
Transparency. This should be no duh, honestly. like transparency, honestly, is a contract that you make with everyone that you're collaborating with. That you're going to speak and be transparent. And it's core to your team's success. So transparency.
Yeah. And I like to say, don't forget, right, that many people excel with maybe a bit more context. Maybe they just need some real talk, but maybe there's something that you can provide simply by asking if they feel like they have what they need. Right? Do you have what you need to do your job efficiently, effectively, or to collaborate, and by making sure that you are transparent and you're giving people the tools they need for success, we can be more effective collaboration and more efficient.
And finally, accountability. I wish I could take credit for that, Tessa and I, but I can't. It comes from Brad Sims and from Winston Bench, who preach this daily, which is just to treat the discussion as if you own the company. And when I first heard that, I couldn't quite understand it. But basically, if you go into the mindset of accountability as if you own the company, then you're going to want to make sure that the smartest people are in the room.
Oh, yes.
You're going to want to make sure that there's a diversity of opinions. You're going to want to make sure that there's a supportive environment that can take the conversation and move the conversation forward. So, we landed here intentionally because accountability is important.
I mean, it's huge. If you're the client, right, and you want your business to succeed, when you want to surround yourself with the smartest people that you can find, right? So I was telling Geoff before, my dad used to say this to me, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to have those people around me and where to find the people that are excelling in the areas that are going to be crucial and additive, right? I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. And so I want to have those people around me and take pride and accountability in building and supporting a group of people, right, who are going to come together for a common goal.
That's right.
I feel strongly, and so does Geoff, that's when creativity, innovation, and the work will thrive and succeed.
Agree. And as a kind of a final encapsulating thought, everyone talks about innovation, but there's no innovation without experimentation. And there's no experimentation without collaboration. So thank you for letting us use awesome comic characters to make a point about collaboration.
And thank you, Geoff, for letting me throw in DC a little bit.
Thank you for letting Tessa throw in DC, and thank you, Morning Buzz, for giving us a platform to have this discussion with everybody out this morning. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Awesome. That was so great. Of mine waiting for me to pop up here. Let's just give it a second. There I am. All righty. Here we are. Perfect. That was so awesome. Thank you both for being here. I know it's super early for you guys and you just killed it. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
we do have some questions rolling in. Our first one's a bit juicy from Lindsay, who asks, how do you approach working with a bad collaborator?
Want to go
Oh,
there?
yes, I would
Okay,
love
go,
to talk
go.
about this. Okay, so yeah, that was something we talked about a lot because it was like, oh yeah, great guys, like that's fine, but we have maybe some old school environments or some set in the ways and people that are not like collaborating well. And I think that what I found, and maybe this is the producer in me, is trying to understand, again, this is like the why, right? Why are people acting the way that they're acting? Why are they collaborating in a certain way, and trying to foster and find the thing that helps them move in the right direction, in a productive direction, right? So we could say, they're, if you've noticed what they're doing, right? So are they just adding just to add? Are they, feeling stuck and they're just, shutting things down? And it goes, well, what's the fear? And what can I do? What can I say to help them, give them the tools that they need to get past that, bad space that they're in, right? So it's really understanding the person and hearing them and seeing them and like trying to get to the root of like, well, what's making them do what they're doing? And it's a little bit of that psychology. But I think that if you can really see what's driving someone and taking a moment, not just focusing on what they're saying, but like why they're saying it, I think you can really unpack that and try to see like, hey, well, what can I suggest, or how can I guide it so that I can move in the direction of something that's, it is a more proactive and, helpful collaborative, point of view.
Yeah, Lindsay, I think it's a great question. I mean, not to reiterate anything that Tessa said, I would say kind of like establishing rules of engagement are essential first.
Yes. Yes.
And because when you do that, then there is no bad collaborator. And sometimes what Tessa said is absolutely true, is that a bad collaborator comes from it's a fear device. It's a defense mechanism. So that would be one, is establishing rules up front, right?
Right.
And then honestly, if they're disruptive to the group, and you find that there is no kind of cure-all, then bye.
I mean, and it depends. Like, you could say they're a bad collaborator, and the tough part, right? When like real talk here is like, what if the bad collaborator is like higher up? That is something that happens, right? And I think this is, we talk about transparency and honesty, and sometimes that's like it's scary, but like having an honest conversation one-on-one,
Agree.
right? And be like, hey,
that's a good idea.
When this happens to me, or when you do this, it really feels like it stunts it. And I, personally, I feel more productive, or I feel like we move things along when I have these kinds of tools, or we interact in this kind of way. And I think having that, like, not saying like, oh, you do this, I'm angry at you kind of thing. And it's more productive and like, can we work towards something different? Can we have an honest conversation about how this is stunting or not? And, a lot of people, any kind of confrontation, they're like, you might be surprised by what you get. People say, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Right. That's
Like,
very true.
and if you don't tell them, they don't know. So sometimes that kind of, really one-on-one honest conversation can be very helpful. I know it's scary sometimes depending on the level, but like, what do you have to lose if it's not going well?
It's an excellent question.
Just try.
Yeah, especially leaders who maybe haven't had the best training on being a leader. They think they might be helping instead of giving way to somebody who might be under them with really great ideas.
I love that.
That's right,
because,
Adam.
and that's something I say to my, my team all the time. I have these one-on-ones and get feedback, and I go, am I helping or am I hurting? Right. So if you're a leader, I'm just like, I don't want to be the cause of the problem. And I may think that I'm contributing in a great way, but if I see that people are butting heads or it's not really moving forward, I go, okay, it may not be me, maybe them, but like, let me reflect on that. Is that something that I'm doing that's confusing people or stunting it? And, I want to take that accountability and say like, okay, maybe it's something that I can shift or have that conversation with someone to shift it.
Yeah. On the opposite side, do you have any tips for building a team when you're hiring folks to be able to tell that they're going to fit into your culture of collaboration? Or maybe are there red flags that you look for?
Is that an Adam question or is that a group question?
Oh, that was a me. There's some good,
I mean, it's a
group
great
ones,
question.
but I felt like it tied in.
No, I actually I love it, Adam,
Really
because
good question.
as a part of our kind of onboarding and interview process, we quickly vet our core values at Gale against the people that we hope to bring in. And one of the questions, literally one of the first questions that I asked us, I don't know about you, is just kind of
Vibe
like,
check.
1000%. It's just like, how do you feel about collaborating? How do you feel about working in groups? Look me in the eye and give me an answer. You know what I mean? Versus, and everyone's going to say yes, but then when you really kind of like get in and investigate it, you find out who's actually into it and who isn't. So that's awesome. And what we find is that our teams are comprised and built with people that absolutely lean into and love collaboration. It's the reason why we're able to do the work that we do. But you do get some people that are, fake actors who will say, "Oh yeah, no, I'm totally a collaborator," and then they'll go in and they will not be.
Yeah, I say trust your gut, right? When we're talking with somebody and it's like you can tell pretty quickly, right? Or this is someone that just like has to be right.
Yes.
That I need to be the lead. I need to say something like, I'm okay with being wrong, right?
Yes.
I have strong opinions and I, want to make sure that my voice is heard. But like at the end of the day, if I'm on an island, like that's okay. Like we all like sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, but like be aware of that. And when you're looking at those people that you're trying to bring in, I would ask those questions, right? So it's like, you can get a vibe, but if it's like, no, what I say is always the way, that's not what you want. Like, I don't pretend to know what I don't know. And I don't know everything. We're always learning. We're always growing. And so no matter what level you're at, I want to tap into the expertise of other people. So you can really try to vet that when on that kind of onboarding and vetting process.
Sure.
There's different tools in that, but yeah, it's a great question.
Cool. This one is definitely in from our audience, and you will understand this better than I do. In a world where everybody wants to be Tony Stark, how do you keep the Hawkeyes of your team engaged?
Oh my
so
God.
Good.
Who was that? What is that person's name?
So good.
I
need you to hit me on LinkedIn and send your resume immediately. That is. Oh God, please pose it one more time so that I can soak in the visual. One more time, Adam, please read the question.
Yes. In a world where everybody wants to be Tony Stark, how do you keep the Hawkeyes of your team engaged?
Phenomenal. Okay, Tony Stark is a huge personality, right? Multi, millionaire, playboy, philanthropist, all this stuff. And so it's a great analogy. I think the way you keep them involved is just meeting regularly, is empowering everybody, and because Tony Stark he sits above everyone else because of his large personality, but the idea of collaborating is democratizing. Is actually putting everybody on the same level. So even when we were talking earlier about like people that may have higher titles in meetings and being different and guiding the conversation, the fun and the power of a collaborative environment is it's absolutely even kill and level, right? So my short answer to that would be that there is no Tony Stark in a collaboration. There might be a moderator in a collaboration, but everybody's on the same level so that there's a discussion.
Yeah, and I think I'd say that if you're, I feel where this question is coming from very, very deeply. And I think that you have those people that are, taking over the room or trying to be like, I'm going to lead and I'm just going to, basically bulldoze the conversation and have that. And I feel like a lot of times some of those folks need a minute, right? So if you're in that room and then the tone is like, da, 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 quiet, silent, let them rant, and then at the end of it, like give a pause, because at some point, if everybody's quiet and they're just going and you don't feed into it and you don't try to battle it along the way, they're going to run out of gas. They're going to finish and you go. And one of the things we talk about too is like we talk about active listening, right? So they finish, you go, hey, so-and-so, I heard what you said. I acknowledge what you said. What I heard you say was that, right? And then you go, okay, but I would add this thing, or
Right.
I think you said this, but how about this? Or like, I heard that that's that side of things. To play devil's advocate, would you want to hear this? And I think it's making sure that those people like say, I hear you, I see you, I understand,
Mm.
and then I'm going to contribute. Because I think that that's a lot of the people that, bulldoze it. It's like they are pushing and driving because they feel like they're not going to be heard or no one's going to listen. And so you have to make sure that you're acknowledging the person and their thoughts. And I really, and we talk about this a lot too. And I love what Geoff says is like, in that cadence of a conversation or this collaborative environment, someone finishes talking, and you're like, I heard Geoff, I heard you said
Yep.
this. And you're reiterating it and you're acknowledging it and you're regurgitating it in a way, and you're saying it so they know that you heard them, and they know that you understood what they were trying to get at, so that they go, oh, they listened, they heard me. And then now the door's open for you to start contributing and saying it. Now, and we say that about the fear. This is when you have to be honest and transparent and being like, hey, I heard this thing. This is what you said. Now, I may have a different opinion. I may think this. Like, let's foster the conversation and be like, well, what about this idea?
Mhm.
And I think it's really important that we just make sure that there's an open playing field. And I think that a lot of people just want to be acknowledged.
Yeah. And by the way, for whoever posed that question, if none of this works, remove Tony Stark's suit of armor, and guess what? There's no power. Just lock it up in a closet somewhere.
Yeah. Because
Can't do anything.
at the end of the day, it's like, you could have all the experience in the world, right? But it may just be, but every project, everything is different. So always, and this, I think this is why we all love this thing.
More questions.
It's
more
like
questions.
different experiences, and you just know, you have to give it a space.
Absolutely. And I actually want to take 1 second to give credit. When you asked about the hiring question, it was my own question, but it does look like Kyle had the same idea. So multiple people wanted to know, and I just want Kyle to know that you've been heard. Okay.
See, that's how we collaborate.
I'm being transparent and giving credit. Diana wants to know how to find out if the bad collaborator may be only just communication.
Ooh, very good question.
You want to tackle first?
Sure. Yes and no, right? So it could be that, a lot of things I say as a producer, right, is I try to play translator, right? Because I think a lot of times people are talking and they're trying to say different, they may be saying the same thing, but they're not like, they're not hearing each other.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the best way to collaborate is like stepping back and being like, hey, you're saying this, you're saying this. I think that you're saying the same thing. When you say this, Geoff, are you meaning this? Because I think that they're meaning this thing. And trying to like connect the dots there and just be really clear about like, hey, maybe we're just missing each other, and taking a step back and being like, let's translate what you mean. And sometimes that goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's and Tessa mentioned it earlier in the presentation, but it needs to be like a flurry of questions. We're curious humans and we're curious beings. And so it's just kind of like, can you dig in a little bit? Can you unpack a little bit about what you're saying? Get them to talk more. And I think that's when you get to those quick results.
Yeah. Context.
Yep.
Cool. We have one last one, just making sure. Yeah, we've got one last one. I might even kind of amend it a little bit. Noreel wants to know, does everyone have equal say, or does final say fall to one or two people? And so I guess what I would amend to that, because we've been talking about equality in the room, is like, how do you drive like collaboration towards an end goal with that, when you give everybody space, sometimes it can spiral. Like, what kind of structure do you maybe use to give everybody the voice, but still move it forward?
Great. Let me take a quick swing at that. So again, in the rules of collaboration, I think that there needs to be a moderator. And that moderator is Switzerland. Like, that moderator is basically like, I am here to facilitate the discussion. The collaborative environment. I also would say, and I feel strongly about this, that the collaboration and the spirit and the culture of collaboration is not about the people and what they're saying. It's about what you're trying to solve.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that should be central to anything, whether it's collaborating with a client or collaborating internally with your colleagues. It's not about, oh, this is what Geoff thinks, or this is what Tessa thinks. It's about the problem and the strategy that we're looking to solve, how we're solving it, the discussion that leads to solving it, has to be kind of like front and center. And if that's the case, then it kind of solves itself, right? Because it becomes less about the personalities in the room, and it becomes more about how the personalities in the room are solving the problem at hand.
Right. And I think that, it's, if you're in the room of and you're collaborating and there's not a moderator,
Yeah,
I think that's where we say, take a step back and be selfless and say, I'm going to help. I'm going to play that role.
Yeah.
Right. And say like, okay, we're going in circles or in this, or it's like, oh, it's just going to be this one person, and be brave in that sense and be accountable in the sense and saying like, okay, I'm going to be the moderator. I'm going to take a step back. Hey guys, reminder, what are we really trying to accomplish here? It's not personal. It's not this like personal, mission of like, I have to be right, or I have to say this thing. It's like, we are at the service of the idea, like, or the service of what we're trying to achieve. And if people are getting lost into the weeds, like taking that step back, and sometimes that's the best thing in collaboration, is to be the facilitator of that work and saying like, hey, how can I help people recalibrate, and making sure that, like, okay, I respect what you said, but like, I really want to hear from so-and-so. It's not even yourself, right? It's like, oh, I think they said something. And that may get you around some of these, like, well, it's the one person or the second person in the room, and that's supportive, right? And then it's not saying like, oh, my boss said something, and then I'm gonna say something back, and now I'm nervous about it, and go, oh, thanks, boss, but like, I think somebody else said something, and it seems like maybe we should hear what they have to say. Could we talk about that? I'm curious, I think that kind of thing helps, and you can kind of get around some of the weird, awkward positions where you're like, oh, my boss doesn't want to hear me say something right now.
Oh yeah,
but maybe they want to hear this person.
I 100% agree. And actually, to Adam, if I may, to kind of bookend the discussion, when the Avengers solve a world problem, it was never Hulk did it. It's never Black Widow Spider did it.
Yeah,
it's the Avengers did it. And I'm saying that to say that the idea that comes is the byproduct of the collaboration is authored by the group. Right. It is authored by the group. And I think that if everybody knows that, then there's no, it was my idea. It was no.
The world doesn't see that Geoff did such and such and right? No. You may know internally, but like at the end of the day, like, it's the thing.
That's right. That's right. And it takes a lot of selflessness to do that. It's absolutely a Gale special sauce. And it's allowed us to do the work that we continue to do. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. And we also say, but one thing I wanted to say too was like, don't be afraid of the bad ideas, right? Bad ideas can foster amazing thoughts and ideas. And that's why I always say, ask the why, because you may say something and you're like, oh, I don't know if that made sense, or that was like not good. And everybody in the room could say, oh, that's not a great idea, but why did you get to that idea? And what happened there? And you can say, oh, well, that's not it. But because you said that, now it makes me think of something actually,
that's right.
The insight was interesting. And now we're going to get to a good thing. So I think we go back to the fear thing, but like, don't be afraid. The bad ideas can foster so much good and can inspire, and it doesn't need to be from the one guiding person. And sometimes it's the bad things that make you find the best stuff.
Can we take on one more question?
I like these.
Let's see.
We'll answer shorter, I promise.
Okay.
I may be verbose. I don't know.
Okay. Have you had to develop any new tools or protocols for better collaborating during the pandemic? And what has in particularly stood out as being effective?
Okay. I wish I hadn't asked. That's actually, I'm glad that I did.
30 seconds. I'm just kidding.
You're glad.
Okay. So 30 seconds. You go 15, I go 15.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. You said tools, right?
Yeah.
Tools or protocols, like processes, anything that's come out of the pandemic that's helped collaboration in this kind of new environment.
Getting on the phone. That would be my short answer. Like, right. Yeah. People try to I always say to my team, like, if it's more than a couple messages back and forth or more than 2 emails and we're missing each other, get on the phone and talk about it, because it just translates different. And, because we're not in the offices and things for pandemic, you had to get on the phone, but really it made us realize, like, yeah, sometimes you just need to be like, see each other and hear each other. And it's not just, getting lost in text messages and the intentions of what we assume something is. So
And
talk about
nothing
it.
drives me more crazy than a collaborative email chain where people aren't seeing the previous reply, so they're adding in before addressing the thing that just came up.
Email chains are not collaborative. They are streams of consciousness. So get on the phone.
But and my quick ad would be that it's caused a bit of challenge to do it during the pandemic. For us, it's just simple. It's a video conference. It's a shared document. It's getting into that shared document, letting that be the constitution of the collaboration. Continue to refine that shared document. And again, what's nice about the shared document is that it is co-authored. So it's not like this is Geoff's document. No, this is kind of like the team's unit. And then I hate to say it, but there's no substitution, absolutely no substitution. I know everyone's going to hate to hear this because they're just like, I don't want to go back to the office. Getting in a room.
Yeah.
Even if that room is a coffee shop, just get in a room because there's an energy that happens when we're all together that there's absolutely no substitution for.
It hits different. Yeah, for sure.
It does.
Awesome. Cool. Well, both of you, this has been awesome. I feel like we could do this all day. So fun. I think you both maybe need a nap. I know it's so early there. You have done awesome. And I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here and for this awesome presentation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. All right. Well, before we wrap up for the year, I wanted to take a few moments to thank you all for joining and supporting this program. It's been a true honor and a privilege for me to get to know and share our members' stories and incredible talents. And so thank you for being a part of this community, for being so inspiring, and for supporting each other in the way that you do. Now here comes my subtle plug. If you aren't a member but would like to learn more, I hope you'll reach out. We're also offering 20% off of membership for a limited time with code MEMBERGIFT20. You can use this to join for the first time or even go ahead and renew your membership for an additional year at this special rate. So it's a perfect time to become a part of this amazing community. I dropped a link down below on this episode page that'll take you right to our membership options. And while we're talking about incredible members, if you, like me, have not finished or started your holiday shopping, take a moment to explore our holiday marketplace. You'll find books written by our members, fashion and accessories, home goods, lifestyle items, really beautiful prints, and so much more, all created by our members. We've also spotlit some Ukrainian makers that are worth checking out and supporting. So I hope you'll head down there. There's also a link down below to the marketplace. And if you're a member and have something that you'd like to list in the marketplace, we'd love to showcase you. So there's a form there as well. We'll keep the marketplace live all year, so it's not too late to join. And that's it. That's all I've got for 2022. We're working hard on getting our programming together for 2023. So if you want to be featured or if you have something you want to see from us, please write to me. There's a contact form on the About page for you here on morningbuzz.oneclub.org. But in any case, I'll be in touch with next year's lineup on the other side of the holidays. So thank you again for joining. And from all of us at the One Club, happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year.